Hello everyone, welcome back to Software Infotech. Before we dive into advanced vSphere automation, we need to understand the building block of PowerShell. In this episode, I'll explain how Cmdlets work, what vSphere objects are, and how to filter, select, and chain commands together using the PowerShell pipeline. This foundation will make every other episode easier to follow. You need to pay more attention to this lecture because this is the base which you need to understand properly. And if you really want to learn how to manage vCenter with PowerShell using PowerCLI module. The verb noun pattern. A commandlet is a lightweight, specialized command used in PowerShell to perform specific system administration tasks. Built on .NET, they follow consistent verb-noun naming convention. Example, Get-VM, and support pipeline to combine multiple commands for automation. So here we are talking about the VM management example. This command all target the same object VM, but the verb change the action. So here we are giving the command to retrieve the virtual machine is a get-VM. Power on the virtual machine, start-VM. So you can see here we are performing all the actions on one object, that is the VM. And then the verb change the action like the set, get, start, stop. And the another example I want to give for the host management. So here we can see the verb change the action, but the noun tell us we are working with the ESXi host instead of virtual machine, because here the command is get-VMHost, set-VMHost, or restart-VMHost. So earlier command we were using get-VM. Here we are using get-VMHost. So object is a different, but action we are using based on the verb. So takeaway from this is like, this pattern makes command predictable. The verb tell you the action and the noun tell you the object type. Once you understand this, you can guess what most CMDlets do without memorizing them. Let's move to the demo. So we are on our vCenter server. So this is a web console of our vCenter. Now we want to manage this vCenter with using the commandlet. So I'll open the PowerShell. In the last video, we had seen how to install PowerCLI in two ways. One from the install module command, and another one we saw how to install it offline by importing the module. Now we have already installed the PowerShell, right? So, and you already know that how to check the version of it. So let me again go and tell you the command how to check the PowerCLI which is installed in our computer. Okay, sorry, I'm mixing two commands here. We have to use get module PowerShell and list available. Okay, and here you can see VMware PowerCLI 13.3.0 version is installed on my computer. Now, I just want to run the get-VM command that we saw on our presentation, right? So let me try to use that and I'll show you what we are missing here. Okay, so suppose I say, okay, get-VM, and then it is saying, warning, please consider joining the VMware Customer Experience Improvement Program. And this is a command, okay? So last video, we had already seen how to disable this warning and, like execute your command. So this is the fresh setup, and then we will say, okay, see, you are currently not connected to any server. Please connect to vCenter. So let's first disable this warning, and I don't want that, okay? I don't want to join this program. So I'll say false. Yes for all user. Perfect. Okay. So we have disabled the warning, and now again, let me give you the command and it should not show that warning. And now this time it is not giving us this warning, but directly the error that we are not connected to any vCenter. Okay, so to connect the vCenter, we had seen the command. It is connect-vi server. Okay, so if I press the tab key, it will auto complete the command connect-vi server. So again, here we have to say which vCenter we are connecting, right? So I'll use here server. So here you have to use hyphen server, not hyphen name. Okay, and then us vda vc 01.sitech.com. Okay, so here one more error will come, but I just want to let you know like how we have to disable all the warnings and everything, so you can understand it in a practical way. And here you can see invalid server certificate, right? So we have to disable the certificate warning because this is standalone vCenter that we have created, which is using the default certificate, not from the CS assigned certificate. Okay, so we have to disable this warning. So how to do that? We had seen that in our previous video, but I'll use the same command: set hyphen PowerCLI configuration hyphen invalid certificate action, ignore, confirm. Yes. Okay. Now here in valid certificate action, we said ignore for session and for the user. Okay. Fine. So again, give the same command: connect hyphen VS server. I'll hit enter. And you can see here now there is no warning, and we have directly connected to our vCenter by using the credential. And this is what we are working with, right? So now what we are going to do, we are going to use get-vm command to identify how it is giving us the output. Okay, so the first command, if you are not sure like which command to use on for which purpose, or you don't know the way how to retrieve the the information of the virtual machine and how to use the command, so there is always get help a function available for you. You can type get help, and then you can give the command get hyphen vm. Okay, and then this will show you exactly what is required to for this command to run and what is the use of this command. So when we type get hyphen help space get vm, it is saying this is the name of the command. Then synopsis: this cmdlet retrieve the virtual machine on a vCenter server system. And what is the syntax that we can use here? And also the description, this cmdlet retrieve the virtual machine on a vCenter server returns a set of virtual machine that correspond to the filter criteria provided by the cmdlet parameter. So there are so many things, and also here you can see the most important thing is related links and online version. Okay, so suppose I want to get the online help, I want to see like what is how this command can be used, right? The online documentation. I don't want to prefer the Cmdlet output or the PowerShell output for this. I can just copy this link. I can open that in a browser. And you can see we will land on the same page where it says get-vm. The Cmdlet retrieve the virtual machine on a, vCenter server system, return set of virtual machine that correspond. And it is almost same. Okay. It is almost same as the Cmdlet description, PowerShell description. Okay, and there are like even we can here in the remark section you can see, to see the example, type get help, get vm, and example. So let's try one by one. Okay, so let me copy this, let me open the notepad. Okay, so we'll give the command one by one and we see the difference, because first time we just put get hyphen help get vm, but now this time we want some more example how to use that. I didn't want to directly jump on that. And here you can see now there is no much information, but it have given us the result only with the example. Now this is the example that get hyphen vm, then we can use the name, and then here my vm, and there is asterisk sign on that. So what it is saying, that retrieve all the virtual machine whose name starting with my vm. Okay, if any of this, like suppose your virtual machine start with some specific name that you want to identify on the virtual machine on the vCenter, then you can apply this wildcard filter to like identify your machines, like is there, how many machines are there with this name, we start with this particular name, right? There is another example here. It is like, like variable will always start with the dollar sign, right? So always remember, whenever any command or anything is starting with a dollar in the PowerShell, that means it is a variable, and you are creating that variable with some input. Okay, so this is a variable name and equal to sign, and we are giving the input from this command. Okay, and now what is this? Retrieve all virtual machines that reside on the specified data store. Now suppose I want to get the data store. I am storing that data store information in the variable, and then I'm saying, okay, get VM from the data store, and the data store name comes from this variable. Okay, so here you will not understand like why we are storing the data store name in the variable, but when we will move further, right, we'll go into the automation section. That time we have to use the variable, because that time we have to capture the information in the variable, and then we have to put some for each object loop on that, and then we have to like retrieve everything. Maybe this time we are talking about only the one data store, but what if we want to capture more than two data store, right? And then we have to retrieve the virtual machine like from each data store. So that is the reason we every time we like whenever we are working on automation, we always try to save the information in the variable. So okay, you can see here, it is the same information that you are getting. Okay, now let's use the second command. Okay, okay, not this one, detailed. And here it should give, if you remember, right, the first output when we only put the command till get VM, and this time we have specified detailed version, right, and then it have given everything that we need. You can see here now there is one more option it has given is a parameters, like how many parameters we can use along with the get-vm command, and that is the data store. We can use the ID, then location, name, and there are many more, right? The tags also we can use, the virtual switch, and the common parameter is also there. Okay, so again, it have retrieve given us the information as well, like example how to use this command, and we already seen that, right, in the example section. So if you just want to retrieve the example, you can use this command. If you want to get everything, then you can use this command. Now let's use the third command. Okay, not sure. Okay, so what is the difference between full? Okay, so awesome. When we are using the full parameter or filter, right, it is giving us each and everything along with the parameter, then how to use that, whether it is required or not, if it is required, right, if it is mandatory or not, right? So here the parameter data store is required false, it means it is not a mandatory. In the ID specific, the ID, if you are using the ID parameter, right, string, then it is required, yes it is required, and then position named, right, default value none. So many things it have retrieved. So you can also work with PowerCLI to get help and understand the command in very depth, right? So let's use the last option, and then we'll move to our demo section. Okay, it is asking me where you want to open this, and I'll say okay, I will use this one, and it is the same, right? Okay, it is the same link. So if you want to directly go on a web browser, you can use this command get help get VM, and then just put the one filter here, that is a hyphen online, and it will take you to the online store. Now let's jump to our demo section, right? We know that now how to use the get VM, and then we'll use that. Okay, because we are already connected to our vCenter. Let me clear the screen. Let me increase the font little bit. Okay. Now get -vm. And you can see here how many virtual machines are running on my vCenter is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so these two are the by default VM. Okay, so don't consider that, but this is the VM that is running on the vCenter. Now we'll use the basic function, right, as we described there. uh, Get VM hyphen name, and then I'll say okay. I'll want to find more thing about this. And you can see here, it is giving me the detail about web server 1, that is name, power state, number of CPU, and the memory in GB. Okay, so I have assigned the 1 CPU and the 1 GB memory for this because it is not in a power on state right now. It is in power off. But now, as we discussed about the wildcard, right, we have to give the star object, so it can retrieve all the VM information which is starting with the web. So how to do that? Okay, so I'll use the same filter here, but after the web I'll use the asterisk sign. Okay, now let's see whether we are giving the proper command. And you can see here, now this time when I say I just want a VM name starting with web, and then I give the asterisk sign here, it is only retrieving the 3 virtual machine information which is starting with the web. Okay, now we talked about the object, right? That VMware vCenter have the multiple objects, and it retrieve the information accordingly, right? So we already have the gate VM. Now let's talk about storing the virtual machine information in the VM. So I'll create a variable called VM, and I'll say okay, get hyphen VM hyphen name, and then okay, so I say web server 01. Okay, now what I'm doing here exactly is like I'm storing this command output in the VM section, and then we'll retrieve that information in some different way. Now how to do that? Let me first store the information in the VM. Okay, perfect. Now the virtual machine information of web server 01 is captured in the variable. Now we will use the different command to retrieve that information. Okay, so I'll use the $vm. Okay, and then I'll use the pipeline, and then get hyphen member. Okay, so it will show us all the properties and the method. Okay, and here you can see, okay, convert to version equal get client, get type. Okay, we can use the log updates, create date, which folder it is, right? So there are so many num CPU, right, and the memory GB. And this is the object it retrieve, right? If we see here, it is the name, power state, number of CPUs, and the memory GB. Okay, so now let's target. I just want to like get the name from that variable. So what I'll use is like I'll use $vm dot name. Okay, if I hit enter, it is saying me, okay, this is the web server 1. Okay, so I'll use this now. M dot num CPU, and here you can see it is giving me 1. Now VM host. Okay, I'll use this VM host. Okay, and you can see here US East 1, this is connected power on. So this virtual machine is running on this ESXi host. If you want to verify, we can go to that virtual machine. Okay, web server 1, and here you can see here, okay, host, see here US hyphen east 1. Okay, so this is how it is showing me the information about the VM host, and this is how the all the properties that you want you can retrieve from that object. Okay, suppose I want to say okay, folder, I want to get the folder output. I say okay, folder, and it is saying, okay, it is in a VM folder. Now, we saw like how to get the object and understanding it, like how to retrieve that. Okay, so now we will see how to filter the output and get the specific information about the VM. Okay, so here I'll say get, let me clear the screen. Get VM. So here we are using our first filter, and how to do that I'll explain you. Okay, so I'm using here dollar underscore dot power state is equal to, okay, I'll say powered on. Okay, and then I'll close the bracket, curly bracket. Okay, so what we are saying here, get VMware object, and here we are using the the filter, the power state is equal to powered on. So any VM which power state is equal to power on, I want that list. Okay, so if I hit enter here, you can see here the default two virtual machine which is by like running on a vCenter, it is in a power off state, and other three virtual machine in a power off state, right? So let me change the filter, power off, and here I hit enter, and here you can see there are four virtual machine which is in a power off state, and this is how we can put a filter here. I want to retrieve the virtual machine information where the number of CPU is less than 2 might be, right? And we can do that. Okay, so we'll use the same filter with different parameter. Now here the filter will get changed. Okay, now how to change that filter? So I want to say get hyphen VM where object and dollar underscore sign is like any VM. So any object here. Okay, so whatever the command you here you are giving, right, it is in any, you can consider that as a any. Okay, so any VM which having number of CPU, okay, less than 2. Okay, I want to see, because like almost all my virtual machine have the 2 like number of CPU 1, but for the filter purpose, okay, I'll edit something. CPU, I'll say okay 4, fine, because it is not in a power off state, so it doesn't matter. It is setting, and I'll say here 4. Okay, so I have changed the filter and I have made 2 CPU 4. Okay, now what I want to do is like I want to see, okay, any VM which is having number of CPU greater than 2. Okay, and if I hit enter, now it is retrieving me the 2 VM information where we had modified the CPU. So this is how it is quick, like we just edited the vCenter virtual machine information, and we put a filter here and it retrieved the live information. So that is how it is. You can use n number of filter here, like as we said, right, how many properties it was retrieving by using that command. So you can use all the properties detail here to filter, put a filter on your command line. Okay, now selecting the properties, right, how to select the properties in a one line, right? So if I want to say get hyphen VM, then use the pipeline and then say select object, then I say name power state num CPU and the memory GB. Okay, so it have returned me, given me the information in a table in the name, power state, number of CPU, and the memory. Right now, for the output I don't need memory. Right, I just need CPU, and I can hit enter, and it will give me only that. I don't need CPU. I just need power state and the VM, because in the automation you might only need few details. So you should know about how to select or how to apply the filter that will only retrieve you the information which is required by you, right? So you don't need the output of 100 columns or 10 columns, right? You just need that only two things. Or now maybe I just need only the name, right? Because I want to perform some power of action. Like I want to get the VM, select the object name, and whatever the object, like, I'm performing, I want to power off that virtual machine. So how can I do that, right? So I'll say, okay, like the filter I used right here. Okay, like this. Now, the variable, right? The VM hyphen get. So let me print out the VM variable, and it have stored this three virtual machine information. So now if I want to power on this virtual machine or power off this virtual machine, so I don't use the one by one virtual machine name. I can just use the power off command on this variable, and then it will power on all the virtual machine or power off all the virtual machine. So this is how we can use the sorting object, and even we understood like how to use the pipeline to filter out your data. Okay. If you need any other information, or you have any concerns, you can put that into the comment box, and I'll try to answer that. Thank you for watching the video. Have a nice day.